What's up, guys? It's Carly with FasciNATIVE English, where if you are finally ready to take your English to another level and to begin speaking English like a native English speaker, then you've come to the right place. So, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I have another idiom for you all today, and today's idiom is making ends meet, or you can also say to make ends meet, all right? Making ends meet. This idiom just means to have enough money to only buy what you need to live, all right? So you have enough money to only buy what you need to live or to survive. You are making ends meet. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I have always said this idiom. I have never, ever read it in a book or on a paper or in a magazine or on a billboard. I've never read this idiom. I have never wrote this idiom. I was today years old when I realized the idiom is make ends meet, M-E-E-T. My whole life
is a lie.
as an American, all right, that speaks native English and has an English degree, all right, an English teacher. My whole life I thought it was making ends meet as an M-E-A-T, like meat that you eat.
Embarrassing.
I'm embarrassed to admit this, but this just goes to show you that Americans have so many idioms, slangs, phrases, expressions, so on and so forth that we use verbally when we speak. We don't even know how to write those. We don't even know what they're called. We don't know the history behind them, but we know what they mean because we use them. So my whole life, I thought it was to make ends meet, which makes sense. Like you only make enough money to put meat on the table, to feed yourself. That in my mind, make ends meet. And then even when I was younger, I'm like, you make ends meet, which means you only make enough money to afford the really crappy parts of the meat, the meat that nobody wants, the really cheap meat, the ends of the meat, M-E-A-T. Wrong. It's to make ends meet, M-E-E-T. You learn something new every day, guys. But I have a story for you all about this idiom, make ends meet, all right? So when it was my first year of college, and if you guys have watched any of my other videos, I got married young, and then divorced young, and then remarried. But I got married young, and my ex-husband and I, we were living in this really small apartment, and we were both working pretty not so good jobs. Like we were still 19 years old, so we were working like these random jobs. Like I was working at the mall, and then I also was working at the office of my university, and my husband was working at a karaoke place, a Korean karaoke place, and it was just like,
in terms of money, we have no money.
Like wasn't there. And so we literally were making ends meet. Like all of the money that we made would go directly to just living, like paying our bills, our rent, electricity, water, our car insurance, gas for our car. Like it was insane. And I remember literally eating SpaghettiOs, which is like a canned cheap food here in America. SpaghettiOs, ramen, and then every now and then when we got paid, there's a store in Florida called Winn-Dixie, and it's a grocery store. And like every weekend they would have like a $5 bag of chicken, and I would go and I would buy that, and we would literally like cut that chicken up so that we can put it in food throughout the week. Like we were that struggling. Like we would go over to my parents' house, and my parents would feed us, and I'm like eating all the food and like going grocery shopping in my parents' pantry, like, oh, thank you, Mom. I'll take these, filling my bag up, going back, because we were making ends meet. Like I don't know how we survived, but we survived somehow. We couldn't do anything like fun. Basically, if I were to go visit my parents, we had to plan it out because my university was across town. So when I would go visit my parents' house, it was like an hour drive, and that's gas, and gas is money, So I had to plan, like, do I have enough money to visit my parents? I need to visit my parents because I need to go grocery shopping at my parents' house because I don't have money to go grocery shopping at the grocery store. So I need to go to my parents' house to pick up these things, and maybe my parents will feed me while I'm there. So I remember this one time I went and I knew like I have to get gas when I'm out in my car. So I went to my parents' house, and then like leaving and I'm coming back to my side of town or my university, and I'm like, oh, I need to go get gas. So I'm looking and my debit card is nowhere to be found. Like my money, like my credit card is gone. So I start freaking out. So then I call my husband and he was like, we don't have money right now. So I just put our cards in the cookie jar so we're not tempted to spend like in the cookie jar at our house. And I'm like, you did what? It was just things that he did that made sense to him. You know, we're not together anymore. And that was one of the reasons why. But anyways, I was like, I'm stuck on this side of town because I need money to get gas to go back to our side of town. And you put my card that has all my money on it in the cookie jar at our house on that side of town. And I'm over here on this side of town. What do you expect me to do? And he was like, maybe ask your parents if they can help you. And I'm like, I'm trying to be self-sufficient here. I'm trying to be independent. So then I had to call my dad, and my dad had to come up and help fill up my car with gas. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'll pay you. And he's like, no. And, you know, my parents are really cool. We're not rich, but we're not poor growing up. So, like, my parents are well off, and they were cool about it. But, you know, it was like, that moment in time, I realized, dude, I really am making ends meet. Like I barely have enough to just survive, you know, and I'm having to rely on other people, which I think is normal when you're really young, you know. It's when you're a broke college student.
Help me, I'm poor.
It's normal to just not have money. Like that's the normalcy. At least here in America it is, because college costs a lot of money, so you have to pay for that. And then, you know, if you're living far away from your school, it's almost impossible to commute, so you have to move closer, and then that costs money, and then it just adds up more and more and more and more. So you're poor, okay? If you're a college student, most likely you're poor here in America, unless you have well-off family, or unless you have some kind of scholarship or something, which I had scholarships, but even with my 2 scholarships, it still didn't cover the cost of my tuition. So I realized at this point in time that I was making ends meet, and I just really needed to like get my life together and start working as soon as possible. So that's when my ex-husband at the time, he was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and fulfill my military service in Korea. He was a Korean citizen, he was an exchange student, so he had to go back to Korea to do his military service. So he's like, why don't you come with me? You can work in Korea, you can save money, you can make good money, and then we can come back and we probably won't struggle as much when we come back. So I was like, you know what? Good plan. Let me do that. So that's how I landed myself in Korea to begin with. It didn't go as planned because Korea, everything is cute and all the food is very affordable. So the saving money part didn't really happen because I went shopping way too much. And then I also ate all the good foods. I was like, I'm gonna eat everything. The cafes. The bread, there's the food. There's this place in Korea. If you're watching this, you're Korean, or maybe you lived in Korea. Gimbap Cheongguk, which literally translates to Gimbap Heaven. It's a restaurant. Like everything on the menu back in the day, I don't know about now because inflation is everywhere globally right now, but back in the day, everything used to be $5 and under. And it was like actual meals, like huge meals with side dishes. $5, or well, 5,000 won in Korean, 5,000 won or less. And I think like the most expensive thing on there might have been like 8,000 won. It was like for a lot of meat, and which is $8, you know, around $8. And so I would go there all the time, and I would like pick randomly, whoop, I'm gonna eat this today, pick new items, explore new things. And that's why I wasn't able to save money when I was living in Korea. But so when I came back to America, I went back in the cycle of barely making ends meet for a little bit. And then I was able to kind of get my life together, graduate, get a better job, you know. Now, luckily, I am stable. I'm not rich, but I'm not poor. I'm what you consider middle class here in America. I no longer make ends meet, even though sometimes it feels like it because my kids, they take a lot of money, but I no longer make ends meet, maybe a little bit above that. So I hope you guys have a better understanding of this idiom, make ends meet. If you do, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next video.